Hello, welcome. I'm Chris Slater, retired F-16 pilot turned UAP investigating YouTuber. I'm very excited today to have Richard Hopf on the channel. He's starting Sky360. It's the follow-on program to SkyHub. So I am very excited to introduce Richard Hopf. Hello, Richard. Welcome.
Hi, Chris.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the stream. I work with Martin Holtman out of Denmark, UAPR, and he recommended you. He said you're starting this follow-on project to SkyHub. I was very excited initially this year when I learned about SkyHub and this system to actually, I guess, bring UAP evidence hunting to the people, if you will. So I'm very excited to have you on the show, and I really hope this Sky360 is a success. So the point of this live stream is actually to get to hear about Sky360. To hear how we can hopefully get involved, if anyone wants to get involved to help with the project. And then at the end here, we'll talk about my own plans and requests for information, or at least to get your take on my own satellite project trying to work. So
great.
Can you please just give a short background on you, Richard, how you got into this?
Thanks for having me, first of all, and hello to the audience. 2017 came the article in the New York Times. This was a time when probably there was a awakening call on this planet for a lot of people. So a lot of people were suddenly interested in UAPs and especially in UAP tracking. But there's funny to say there's a history in UAP tracking which goes back to the 60s, where people had organizations or clubs or teams that went out as field investigators with hardware in their hands, like a kind of a compass needle that if it changed suddenly, this little device gives a beep tone, kind of. So these were very rudimentary hardware equipment. Today, in 2020, 21, we have much more sophisticated hardware at our disposal and for reasonable costs. So this new UAP tracking effort is on a new level today. In 2020, let's say beginning in 2020, an organization SkyHub established. The idea was to use off-the-shelf hardware and develop tracking software to recognize anything that moves in our skies and decide whether it's something normal or abnormal. So the software has to be developed to do this feast, to recognize something that is flying overhead. Regrettably, SkyHub, because of the pandemic that is cursing our planet, people from the SkyHub team were too much involved in work issues, family issues during this period. So it was hard to keep up the pace and keep up with so many people coming into the Discord channel and want to build their own. We called it in these days, we called it the hub. Today we call it the stations. But there were a lot of people. I mean, this Discord channel has almost 1,000 people. Everyone wants to build his or her hub. But on the other hand, developers on the software side were hard to find, because I think that software developers have an easy going during the pandemic because they can work from home. Most of them can work from home.
Yes.
And let's say 2020, 2021, the workload increased on the software developers. So we found less and less software developers for SkyHub to go on.
Yeah, you also mentioned that from the beginning, SkyHub was centered around software development. and this kind of really hindered it because it seems like, at least to me, and again, I'm not a software developer, is that it should go in tandem, right? You kind of needed to know the hardware that you're actually going to be using to make the software optimized for that system, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was always talking and saying. You need, because I'm a hardware guy, so that's easy for me. But you need the hardware to develop software for that particular hardware. Although everything is from the shelf, available from the shelf today, from the boards, from the cameras, from the sensors, and have you. The thing is that this, although it is from the shelf, it does not particularly fulfill the needs of UAP tracking. So, for example, with SkyHub, we started with security cameras. But the purpose of security cameras is to scan an area which is rather close. And the objects, more or less big enough to be recognized from a security camera. For UAP tracking, it's much more complicated because the objects are more far away. Compared to their size, they have very small angular resolution, and they won't even be recognized with the security cameras that are available. So, with the regrettable closing of SkyHub this year in August, actually just 2 months ago, we, the hardware team of SkyHub, decided to go on.
Good. Yeah.
Europe.
Yes. Europe disclosure. Awesome.
The thing is, SkyHub was an American organization, and we, as the European team, we couldn't proceed and step in here. So SkyHub was closed, and we had to open up a new organization, and we call it Sky360.
Yes, Sky360. Let's see it here. Cool. So this is it, right? Is it a company? What would you call this, Richard?
It's an association.
Okay.
The difference to a company, it's per se an MPO. You don't make profit here.
Okay.
So you have to keep your books, but by the end of the year, the books have to be on zero. So whatever you get in, you have to spend during the year.
So basically, it's a not-for-profit organization.
Not for profit, exactly.
Oh,
and it's
excellent.
built from members and voted from members. It's a community thing. But we need this organization because, you need a bank account for money transfer because we have to buy hardware and test this hardware. So there's, you scroll up the hardware list. Yeah, that's one of our tools. This is a very important list, the curated list of hardware, where you saw the schematic before for this station, for UAP tracking station, and this parts, this equipment is listed in this curated list of hardware. What you also see is that this list comprises mostly only Amazon available stuff.
I see these stuff, the curated list of hardware.
Yeah.
So this is hardware your team recommends, or you're designing the software for this hardware, or both, I guess?
Both sides. We recommend this because it's available, it's cost efficient, and it is tested. So that's why we can recommend this hardware here, because it's.
And you mentioned tested. Amazon. It's worldwide, essentially.
Yeah, that's one of the issues, because we fathom a network, a global UAP tracking network. We want to see. Our final goal is 150,000 stations, 150,000 stations. Then we have a very dense mesh network to cover the whole planet, so that nothing, whatever comes in or goes out, goes unattended.
Yes, nothing. Perfect.
So they have to be very good in their cloaking technology to evade us.
I love it. Push to test. That's our biggest thing right now, is we can't get, there's not enough evidence. Everybody's like, if only I had more evidence, I could determine. So that's why I love this. I love this program.
That's the thing. why we focus first on optics, on visual data, because we need. I mean, Avi Loeb even said it. People need high megapixel pics or videos of UAPs to recognize as such, and to accept the reality of it. So actually, we did this before Avi Loeb came up with it, and where we said we have to focus first on visuals, on optics, to get optical data, because that will persuade the people much more easily. If you take a waterfall spectrogram of an SDR of a passive radar plot, you can't recognize anything. It doesn't make sense to any people. And even if you draw something over it and explain why it is and this and that, people wouldn't understand. It's much more easy to understand pictures.
It's exactly. And this is the system schematic here, right? This is, I guess, Richard, do you have that video you showed of the actual 3D system?
That's a transparent view of a station. What you see is the box where all the equipment is put in, and then you have all the sensors reaching out, which is the cameras, the hemispheric cameras, and the scope camera, and also these mounting points for radar antennas and so forth. And all this other sensor equipment is inside this box.
And that's the point to zoom, right? So you guys are still, you mentioned a little bit on the security cameras that would give the initial point out, but and they would give the point out to the point to zoom cameras, correct?
Yeah, that's the basic idea. So you need something to scan the whole hemisphere on the 24/7, because you never know when things happen. And this material, the Fisher material, it looks funny. I can show you some pics if you want to, how it looks like. Something like that. So that you don't see much movement, anything. I mean, the clouds move, but very slowly. Sometimes you see birds or planes flying over, or even insects. We saw drones. We saw meteors, shooting stars. We have found some things we cannot explain because of the non-ballistic flight maneuvers. Lights that suddenly pop up, stand still, and then suddenly start moving, and then suddenly start stopping again. So these are things where we are not sure what it could be, because at that point today, the PTZ is not ready. We are still developing on the PTZ, on the zoomed scope, so that we get a closer look up on it. So the zoom will be, our goal is about a 40 times zoom, which is reasonable for, you see the
this
PTZ
here, right? This point
exactly.
to zoom.
Yeah. So the left part is the fisheye part, the hemispheric part, where we scan 24/7. And if the software that's running on the green board decides there's something interesting, then it sends a signal to this board. This steers the PTZ, the zoomed scope, to this event and records it, and decides there's software also and a neural network running on this part, recognizing what it is, whether it's something of normal existence, like maybe it's a drone, maybe it's a meteor. But if it's none of that, then this material will not only be stored locally, but also sent to the cloud.
I see. So so basically, just real quick, so you have your power supply. It goes into this NVIDIA Jetson, which, from what I understand, is optimized towards neural networks. Is that correct? It's like kind of in between a GPU and a normal CPU. How would you describe an NVIDIA Jetson?
Oh, the NVIDIA Jetsons are developed from NVIDIA, especially for AI processing, I'd say.
Yes, cool.
They have a very good and cheap. Actually, they were pretty cheap. I mean, you have here 125 euros.
This is the Nano, though, correct?
Yeah.
Which one are you guys using? Is it the larger one?
We support the Nano, the Xavier NX, and the Xavier AGX.
Okay, so a few different models of Jetsons. Okay,
And
cool.
this is what we learned from our community with SkyHub is that people come in with different motivations. Most of them want to have a hub, a station to run by themselves. People say sometimes that hardware is costly. And we say you don't have to go for the very high-end parts for the start. You can start small and expand by time. So yeah, you see here the tiers, tier 1, 2, 3, just
I
meaning
see.
small, medium, big budget.
I
And
see.
the budget wise, it's let's say $1,000, $3,000, $5,000 range.
Okay, that's so
So
tier 1 is a $1,000 system.
below
Tier 2,
$1,000. Tier 2 is below $3,000 and tier 3 is below $5,000.
I see. So that's where you have, okay, for tier 1, you're going to get the Jetson Nano, and then you'll go to the Samsung T5, etc. Cool.
For example, yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
just look how much budget do you have or how much you want to expand.
And what about who actually builds the systems? What about that enclosure, that thick enclosure you mentioned? How would someone interested in this actually do it?
Yeah. So first of all, when someone is interested and he hears about it, comes in via the Discord channel or via the website. So finally, he will end up at that Discord channel, so he can ask us questions and push to places where he finds the real data. So in that case, with the website, we have the documentation part where you see the schematic and you see the hardware, the curated hardware list, where you have the tier 1, 2, and 3. So you can decide when I want to establish a station on my house, in my garden, my yard, and I have that budget, I know what kind of hardware I have to purchase, and I've got the links to purchase. Then I have the schematic, and I know how to plug the whole thing together. So we also always recommend people to do this at home on the table. So to put all the equipment on the table to make the software running and have everything up and running, and then roll out into an enclosure and put it out. What you see here is the enclosure. It is now the first batch of these enclosures are going to be produced by beginning of December. So in a month or so, a month and 2 weeks.
Where are they produced?
In England.
Okay.
UK.
Excellent.
In Britain. We want to sell these enclosures because we have to invest the money to produce them, and that's where we have to sell them. But we only sell them with a very small markup that goes back into hardware development on the organization. So this will cost about between $200 and $250.
Okay.
This enclosure, and you get all the stuff what you need for the screws, the hinges, the lock, and everything that is needed for it.
Cool.
And on the other hand, you have the stuff which goes inside already purchased. So because you already have it on your table, you just have to put it into this enclosure. And then you have to put it out on a good place where you have a good view to the sky.
And internet? You need internet connection as well, I'm guessing?
Yes and no. The thing is, it works totally offline. It just needs power. The strategy is that on the end, when material is recorded on a station, it is sent to the cloud storage, and then further processed. Because one station can only measure for itself, but if there's another station in, let's say, 30 kilometers distance, or in a third one, a fourth one, we can triangulate. But the triangulation is on the cloud.
So strong. That's huge. Yeah.
And it goes all in real time. So you don't have to care. You set this up, it does its thing by itself. You don't have to take care of it. If you go offline, the data is stored locally. So it depends on the size of your storage, how often you have to look up and clean it up.
So that's this. I took control again, but yeah, basically these are these SSDs, right, that you're talking about? So
Yes,
this would be
exactly.
online storage.
Yeah. There's one SSD, which is the local storage. We just recommend a 500 gigabyte storage. Depends on your money. You can take anything you want. This is just storing locally, which is that we're doing always. And if it's also connected to the internet, it will send over the material to the cloud storage.
I see.
So,
And then why the two separate? Why do you need two Jetsons? I guess I think you mentioned it, but
yeah, one is controlling the all sky cam, and one is controlling the PTZ cam.
I see.
The thing is, because we need two, is we have two video streams. And if you start with the Nano is mostly capable of one high resolution stream processing. And we have to interfere with some neural networks, which is costly on GPU performance and so forth. So we want to dedicate a board to a camera.
I see.
From stability, from not losing frames, not dropouts, and everything else. And on the other hand, the Jetson boards on the PTZ camera are built into the PTZ itself. I show you. So this thing is the PTZ. It's here transparent, but it means that you can look in, that you can look through. You see what's inside. The electronics will be put in this box here inside.
Excellent.
Because the whole thing turns. And this yellow thing in the middle, this little yellow thing, is the slip ring, which on something that turns keeps permanent contact, electronic contact. So we run an Ethernet bus and 2 power cords through the slip ring. So it has 10 rings, 2 for power and 8 for the Ethernet. And because it turns, you just plug a cable, because this will be twisted by the end. It's panning, it's turning endlessly. So it can spin a million times without having the problem with the cable. So we need the slip ring and a good contact. So the electronic is behind the slip ring. So the electronic is somewhere here in between.
And this is the idea you mentioned, is to track the ISS, right? That's kind of your goal, that capability at least, to be able to pick up, track the ISS. And so the idea is anything closer than the ISS, hopefully you'll be able to also track, right? That's the idea.
Yeah, exactly. I show you what I'm saying. Did you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I zoom a little bit in. That's more easier to recognize.
Excellent.
So what you see here is a schematic view of Earth's atmosphere and low Earth orbit, where the ISS is moving, circling around. So it's a distance of 422 kilometers. It has an angular size of 53 arcseconds. It's the size, the angular size. So
yes.
Okay, from the point view of when you stand on the ground and you see the ISS, it covers a little angle from left to the right side end of the ISS itself. So it covers.
How long is the ISS? How big?
109 meters in the widest span from tip to tip. This defines actually the need for the hemispheric camera, because the hemispheric camera is the one that scans 24/7. And in order to recognize the ISS, at least with 4 pixels, you have to divide the 53 arcseconds by 4 pixels, and you come down to 15. It says there 15 arcseconds. You can see it, 50 arcseconds resolution for 1 pixel. So the ISS finally will be shown in our all sky cams with only 4 pixels. And the software has to recognize those 4 pixels within the noise of the million other pixels to see it as could be the ISS. And then heads over to the PTZ, which swings to the ISS and takes a close look up. And recognizes the ISS as such, so we can track it. That's the benchmark we set ourselves for the system. So anything within this low Earth orbit should be recognized by our system and should not be able to evade us.
Cool. And how far along is that AI software?
Pardon me, how long?
Yeah, is the AI is it ready? Does it work today? Does this system work today? How far along are you on this process? What you mentioned a little bit on the hardware, like you're working on the point to zoom, and a new upgrade to that hemispheric point out camera, and then it sounds like the AI is kind of those three parts. So how far along are you on those?
Yeah, we're still with the AI on let's say in phase 1. The good thing is with SkyHub, we already had some stations, some hubs on this planet producing material. We are having now 1.2 terabyte of videos with motion, but any kind of motion. So motion from birds, from you name it, planes, drones, and so forth. The thing is now we have this all in a storage, in a cloud storage, and we are now developing ML part, a machine learning, which needs the human interaction first. So the first step is to reduce this 1.2 terabytes down to, let's say, 500 gigabyte of interesting motion, and then let people watch these videos. I mean, 500 gigabyte of videos, and you have to watch each video 3 to 5 times. Not the same person, 3 to 5 people have to watch the same video. So it will take some time. We already started, but it will certainly take half a year until we have the first phase, not the second phase, which means labeling these videos. And then in beginning of 2022, we can take this labeled material and let a neural network learn from it.
I see.
So it sees the videos, it knows how it is labeled, and finds similarities and builds the network by itself. The idea is to have, let's say, by summer 2022, we'll have the AI up and running. That's the goal, at least. I hope we'll get there. So we need people to help us. Labeling is tough stuff. It's tough work.
Yeah, it seems like I follow along. I'm a huge Tesla fan, and I follow along on their dojo. They have a supercomputer that's basically its job is to train a neural network, much like you're talking about. Instead of humans having to look through all that material, like you mentioned, and then training the network, they have this thing called dojo. Dojo will supposedly train an AI network. The idea is, I don't know if it'll be ready by next year, but the idea is you could hire Dojo. You would pay for this service, and Dojo will train your neural network. So I don't know if I doubt it's going to be ready.
It's available. Such things is available on certain platforms, several platforms. So
oh, really? So
not only Google or Amazon, the AWS. We are one of our community members, one of our team members actually is Paul, and he's looking into all these platforms. But it's still early in time, because the learning of the neural network will certainly not begin this year, because this year we will concentrate on reducing the material and on the labeling, which is really time consuming.
So basically, you're using humans now.
Yeah.
But can we get data? Could you get data now? You mentioned there's already some streams running. Do you have any links to these streams that maybe we can check out?
Yeah, you can go to YouTube, UAP at home, which is Paul in France. You've got it here. So he's got a quite nice setup.
Cool. So this is in France, right? Through SkyHub?
He is in France. He was one of the SkyHub team members. When SkyHub closed down, he just stepped back for a while. He will come back, I'm sure, because he is still building his equipment. What you see here are two cameras, on the left and the right, normal cameras, zoomed cameras, and here's a hemispheric camera. This is the stellarium, where you see from the same point of view, you see where the stars are, which you can see because it's daylight.
Cool.
And then here's the waterfall for the SDR.
SDR, what is that? I'm sorry.
Software defined radio.
Okay.
Where you have, you're familiar with radar. You're familiar because you're a pilot.
Yes.
Passive radar is not emitting radar pings, but uses already existing stations emitting radar signals and knowing about it and recognizing reflections of such emissions, and can recalculate the reflection path. So, for example, you have a station somewhere, let's say in Portugal, and in Lisbon, there's a big beacon of, let's say, TV station sending out a digital signal, but it's a strong emitter. And it's 24/7 emitting. When you're at home, your station can recognize where it is, what the signal is, how strong it is, which frequency and everything. But this emission of the signal from this TV station is also reflected, let's say, by a plane flying over, passing over. So with your station locally, you see not only the emission, the beacon itself, the TV station, but you also see a reflection moving across the sky. And
I remember this is obviously very useful in a military environment because you're not emitting.
Yeah.
So
you're silent.
From what I understand is that it's difficult to actually get good data from this, to actually get point out data. Have you guys had success with this passive radar?
Success is a good word. It's still under development. There are some people, some very good people like Bob McGuire working on it. Science Bob, he's working on an SDR, and he's actually one of the co-developers on this planet for SDR. So the idea is to have a setup which is small enough that it fits either in an enclosure or have some antennas close by. You don't want 20-meter antennas, and you can't put this in your garden. You can't even afford it. So the idea is to have a small devices, small antennas. And there's one product, it's called the Kerberos SDR, which has a 4-channel scanning electronics inside. You can hook on 4 antennas on it. And the nice thing is that you can triangulate with it. So you get 4 signals in, and by the difference, the shifts, maybe Doppler shifts even, you can recognize movement, speed, direction, shape, size, maybe.
That would be, it seems like it's really powerful if you've had multiple receivers. If you can link these systems like you talked about, even if your data point is not so accurate, if you have multiple systems that are linked, now all of a sudden, like you mentioned, we can triangulate, or you guys can triangulate to really get down to a more accurate solution. For
the SDR, it's more easy because you just need the antennas, and you have a receiver with 4 channels, and you can triangulate within itself. With optics, it's more complicated. You have, if it's a static point there, you need a second station, let's say in 20 or 30 kilometers distance, that sees the same point, so you can triangulate.
But with the SDR, you don't, right? You mentioned SDR, you can put it on the same enclosure. You're able to get that sort. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize you could get that sort of breakout. Are there other sensors? Like I've heard as well about acoustic sensors, magnetic sensors. Are you guys
all kind of sensors? But it depends on the which sensors make sense. It doesn't make sense to put a thermometer, a temperature measurement inside. I mean,
Yes.
it's nice to know what the temperature in the box is, but it would not change if a UAP passes by, let's say, 10 kilometers in distance. You wouldn't recognize anything.
But you're focusing on optical, you mentioned.
Yeah, for the beginning, but still we have sensors inside. So sensors are, it's a big word. A sensor is for us, a GPS is a sensor as well. It gives us the coordinate where it is placed. There's an accelerometer.
I say accelerometer. I don't know.
Accelerometer, sorry. I'm from
know.
Austria, please forgive me. Accelerometer.
English is perfect. Yeah.
Which gives you an idea whether maybe space-time is banded.
Accelerometer.
This has to be proven. This has still to be proven. There's so much discussion and things that are not proven yet to be of importance for UAP tracking. I would rather doubt most of them because the influence of such a UAP, which is on a distance, I mean, it's not coming 10 meters close to your station. Yeah. Mostly it does not. And if it's on a distance of, let's say, 5 to 10 kilometers, what effects does it have physically to your local station? What physical measurements do make sense? And there's not much left.
I've also heard GPS. GPS signals could be some sort of indicator. That was from Gary Voorhees.
Thing is, a GPS signal is a digital signal.
Yes.
You can either distort it or not. Either it's broken or it's working. It's not working on a shade of gray where you can say, okay, if it's somewhere in between, we can derive something from it. But no, GPS is either working or not working even. I mean, you can say it's an event if it's suddenly not working.
Yes.
Yeah, you can say that. Or if you see the satellite, if you have 7 satellites in your view and suddenly all these satellites drop out, okay, that's an event.
And also, you mentioned about what is useful for tracking these UAPs, and a lot of time, at least from my limited investigation, is that they can be invisible in the optical, but it seems like we're picking them up more in the IR spectrum. So have you considered putting on any infrared sensors, like, FLIR as they're called, but
we are focusing on sensors with a wide range. So for the all sky cam, we need a 24/7 fixed camera. We are going for cameras with the Sony Starvis sensors, which have the IMAX 335, which has a range from 300 nanometers to 1100 nanometers. So it covers close UV to near IR.
I see. Oh, excellent. So that works at night as well, then.
That works at night as well, definitely.
Okay. So so it is kind of IR. So it's mid or it's on the range of IR. It's like near. I think we called it near IR.
Yeah, near IR,
like MVGs.
Yeah,
and
it's
I think
it's not. Yeah, sorry.
I think I saw that on there was an interesting video from Houston. There was a SkyHub video of that where it captured some light, that was randomly there and like blinking, and then it flew off.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That could still be a helicopter or a drone.
Yes.
A high-flying drone, a high-flying helicopter.
Yeah, it was only one data point there, but it seems like if we had just one other system, now we can tell, hey, it would give us just that much more data to say this isn't a drone, or, it's not possible for a helicopter to be at that altitude.
For a second station, you could say where it is and how fast it is, and maybe what size it is, but you would not recognize it as a drone or a bird, a high-flying bird. You need something like a scope with a 40 times zoom, for example, to look at it.
Excellent. So that's the system. You mentioned anything else you want to show on this this setup here? Or
Yeah, that's just to give the people an impression what the necessity of the hardware actually is. That it's not easy just to take any hardware. I mean, you can, but you will be very limited in what you see. So what I want to show you here is the range of objects and distances and how it is resolved on your camera. So our camera has a resolution of 15 arc seconds per pixel. The ISS will be resolved by 4 pixels on the all sky cam and 160 pixels with the zoomed cam. The a 747 Airbus A340 with an angular size of 415 arc seconds will be resolved much bigger, of course. It will be resolved on the all-sky cam with 28 pixels and 1120 pixels on the zoom scope. And there's another example, which is a smaller example. Just take a UAP. Let's say it's 10 meters in size, like an orb. It has a resolution of 515 arc seconds, and it will be resolved on the PTZ on the all sky cam with 4.5. Yeah, with 4.5. There's a mistake here. Thank you. I have to check this again. There's a little mistake here in the values. Yes. Yeah, that's the right one. 35 pixels and 1360 on the zoomed one. So with 1360 pixels on the zoomed one, on an object that is 10 meters of size and in 4 kilometers distance, which is more or less most of the smartphone UAPs that you find today on YouTube. You get a 1360 pixel object, which is much better than you ever see on YouTube of any kind of UAP.
And that's at 4 kilometers, you said? Or
distance in 4 kilometers distance.
Excellent.
That's an average. When you look on YouTube videos, I'd say the 4 kilometer distance, something that you still can resolve with the smartphone. Yes. Because see, the smartphone, I'm always asked why aren't there better UAP videos? Because there are so many people with smartphones. The problem is a smartphone has a very tiny little aperture optic. And so the optical resolution is very low. And it's intended only to make pictures maybe of a selfie or a group in 20 meters distance. But it's not meant to resolve, let's say, the peak of a mountain in 10 kilometers distance.
Yeah, like this. So this is the feed actually from the ISS. So really, you're going the opposite direction. You know, you have a little station down here. That would be looking up, and that's what I've learned. You know, so we can just transition a little bit into my plan. Richard, is to try and get the opposite, right? So to try and put a satellite up into space, funded with non-fungible tokens. So with crypto funding, we can talk about that later. But basically, to go the opposite direction, and that was the biggest problem. You know, I talked to my cousin. He designed and helped build the Mars orbiter, and his big point was the aperture. Right, you need as large an aperture as possible. Because of that, it's what you can break out at range, whatever that formula is called. I'm sorry, I don't know, but you need as large an aperture as possible. He was saying, you know, a 1 meter aperture would be the best, but now that's up to $10 million. For one of those systems. So that aperture is so huge. So will you be able to get that image that everybody wants? You know, that HD. Where's the HD image of a UAP? This system, do you believe you'll be able to get that within 4 kilometers?
The Sky360 system?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll definitely get this.
Yeah, excellent.
And even before projects like Galileo are ready, we will have it. Because it's easier for us to build this. If you take big scopes, they're expensive, hard to move. And still, if you move a big scope, you need a big head, a mount head that swings it around. So you start with the aperture you want to raise because you need the angular resolution, and everything that goes in behind this down to the mount, it will become more heavier, bigger, more expensive.
Exactly. That's what he said. You know, once he started at that aperture, my cousin, and then from there, based on that aperture, you know, it's like, you know, $1 million for the rest of the system, you know, and then it's like, you know, it's $30 million because everything gets bigger. The cooling gets bigger, like you mentioned. Any motors and everything gets much larger. So I guess my question is, could this system, or what would you recommend to me, Richard, for getting a simple working system that actually provides, you know, real data to the community? What would you recommend to?
So first of all, I would recommend that you do more or less the same that we do. You have a combination of a 24/7 hemispheric scanner and a pan tilt head with a zoom scope. This combination is crucial from my point of view, because the 24/7 hemispheric one, because it has 180 degrees of opening, and you have one sensor in behind. So all this opening is focused down on a very small sensor. So the resolution is not very good there, but it's good enough for a software and a neural network to recognize movement and interesting movement, let's say. But then you need something that you can turn a scope to. I would not go for a scope only, because it always depends where the scope is looking to. And you are just on a random case that you randomly catch something. Like the ISS. The ISS is a zoom scope looking downward. And there are some people who watch these streams where nothing happens. Most of the time, 99% of the time, nothing really happens. And people are just watching these, and sometimes 1 out of 1,000, maybe there's something interesting. And I would not go this route, because if you are in the situation that you are able to send up a satellite, then I would say if you do this effort, you do it right and produce data that is good data, real data, and not 99% of non-data, of noise only. So you want to transmit the signal only. I would combine those both on a platform. Question is, what aperture are you going for? What resolution are you going for? The thing is, the distance from the satellite to the ground. That's the crucial thing. And what the size of an object is that you want to reckon as such. So let's assume when you take our pick of the ISS, our benchmark, it's actually the same upside down. Yeah, exactly that one. So we are looking upwards, but you're looking downwards.
Yes.
But the distance is the same, and let's say the objects are the same. So if a 100-meter UAP lands on ground, you should at least resolve it by some pixels in your SkyCam to reckon the movement as such, and then guide the PTZ to it and see what it really is.
And do you believe the AI software, will it be much more complicated looking down at the Earth? It just seems like there's more, more stuff going on the Earth here. If I show you, do you guys have it easier looking up? I guess is my impression.
It's certainly a difference in the networks. You can't just take our network and copy it into your network, because the material is different.
Yes.
But the procedure is the same. So you have to record first. And that's a problem, because you don't have the material. You have to generate material first. But the good thing is you can send up a satellite, collect data without machine learning, without AI, let's say. Because you have an internet connection to your device up there, you develop your neural network, and when it's done, then you send it up, you upload it basically, and it processes from there.
Yeah, it's that AI software, right? It's revolutionizing so many industries.
Yeah, and especially for optical things, for images, you still need humans to work through the material and label it and say, this is a plane, this is a cloud, so that the AI learns from this, so it doesn't mix up between drones and birds and planes.
And then I guess we just talked a little bit about long wave IR. You mentioned the sensors on it, or I guess they're not as sensitive as our normal optical sensors. Is that correct?
Yeah, because they're very expensive. Bolometers are very expensive and have mostly low resolution. That's why I would recommend always to combine a good optical scope with a sensor with a wide range. Let's say, for example, the Sony Starvis, without making any advertising here, but the Sony Starvis sensors are very good ones and have wide ranges of spectrum coverage. But you could, let's say, add other sensors like a FLIR, like a SVR or long-range infrared sensor, and combine it. You can run the software either separated on the separated material, or you combine the material on beforehand and then let the software work on this. So it depends what works best.
Yeah, excellent. Man, I hope it works. So what is your timeline, Richard? I guess
our scope is, so we are now having the transition from SkyHub to 360 done. We are now having our software developing teams and the hardware team developing a new all sky cam and still working on the PTZ cam. So there are parts that will be finished by end of the year. Let's say the new all sky cam, and let's say the basics tracker, the UAP tracker, will be ready by end of this year. And by next year, the goal is to enhance it with the scope cam, with the PTZ, and to work out the neural network, the training of the neural network. So the idea is to have it by summer next year up and running. So whenever your system is up and running, hardware-wise, we can help you in putting some stuff there, at least to gather the first material for your own neural network.
Excellent. So this is so anyone interested, Richard, you can go. I guess you mentioned this is the first time this website's been released, right?
It's the first time I talked to the audience, to the public, not internally, so that the Sky360 organization is up and running. The new website is up and running. The new GitHub source is up and running.
So GitHub, you mentioned that's where all the software is. So if they want the software, they can go to that.
Go GitHub. To engage. Yeah, go to engagement.
Oh, okay.
You can scroll, go to engagement.
Yes.
They can decide how do you want to engage, and you can join the dev teams, or you can go to the UAP tracking forum on top of it, or you can, when you scroll a little bit up, I think.
Yes.
Up. Hardware. Yeah, join our dev teams.
Cool.
Sorry, that's the wrong one. That's the here, the Sky360 software in the inline, the first version inline. Yeah, that's our new GitHub place, and the other link is the old SkyHub. Right now, for people who are now coming in, we recommend still using the SkyHub version because our version is not ready yet. We will have it by, let's say, ready by end of this year, but the hardware will be the same, and you can replace smaller hardware parts always over the time, and the software will be working with both of them. So with the old hardware and the new hardware will be supported.
Yeah,
so nothing is lost.
Yeah, it's all open source, right? So everything's open source. All the software is free. So all these guys have done all this stuff, and you guys have worked. How much effort has gone into this?
But the important thing is that also the data is open source and free.
Yes.
We create the software is created under Creative Commons license, and the data is also created under Creative Commons license. So it means the data that is created by your station is not owned by you.
Excellent. Okay?
it's owned by humans.
Everyone.
Everyone, exactly.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, I love it, man. Data going, to the public sphere, make it free. I love it. I'm
The
so
thing
happy
is
this
that
exists. Yeah.
there's UAP tracking on this planet since I think since the 50s, but it's on military only. And the data is generated there. We don't have access. The scientific people have no access.
Yeah.
So by this, we want to encourage not only individuals, but also schools, universities. It's let's say very easy for a school, for example, or a university to set up one station because the cost, let's say, $5,000 for one station, and you can create data. And the data that is consumed on the cloud, you can take this because it's free, it's accessible. You can take this data and do your own research.
And just think about what a school would learn by building one of these systems, by integrating the AI, by going to GitHub, getting the software, putting the hardware together, having it operate on a table, first.
That's
the learning.
The STEM initiatives. There are a lot of STEM initiatives on this planet, and schools have the issue that they have to bring the STEMs classes to the kids, so that kids are interested in mathematics, physics. You have to encourage those people.
100%.
And schools have those programs. And they have budget. So $5,000 budget is not a big thing. And we already have some schools that are interested. And we said, okay, wait until beginning of next year. Then we can deliver to you either completely built stations or you build your station with your pupils, your kids. So it could be a physics class that says, okay, or an electronics class, we are setting up the station. The physics class takes the data or analyzes. There's much to do.
Yeah, you could do computer science class, creating that, or you could link a whole department at a university.
You can add new data sensors. You can add new sensors. You can add, it's very easy to add a new sensor. You just take, let's say, a geophone. Just plug it in. It's USB. You just plug it in. It has power. It is already working. You just have some scripting in your Python to make it accessible. And here you go. It's doable for a class of pupils within a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
it's so very cool. Easy. It's low barriers. And we have some schools who are already interested in doing this, because they're always looking for projects like this.
And that's why I'm aiming for the satellite as well. It's I think it's exciting. It excites people to want to get involved. And I think that's so important. Just getting hands-on learning. If you look at our culture, our societies. I think we really need people to actually use their brains more to learn the STEM, to learn how to critically think, how to build projects like this. And
we have the tools today. We didn't have the tools 20 years ago. Today we have all the tools you need. You get all the software. You get so much algorithms, so much hardware, low-cost hardware, high-grade hardware that you can use. The time is right now. It wouldn't 20 years ago. It wouldn't be possible. But 2020, 2021, perfect time. There you go. What happened?
My whole house shut off.
Oh dear.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think we're still recording though. So
yeah, you can edit later. Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily we weren't live.
What I want to add something to your last question.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to ask you something. What do you think? How many stations you would need to cover Los Angeles?
To cover Los Angeles, 5.
Yeah, close. Nine 9 stations.
9. That's it.
But consider the cost. I mean, it's $45,000, and our idea is we will start this idea next year. I'm just launching it right now because I think it could be working, and I need feedback from people like you. So the idea is to make stewardships for cities. So, for example, if someone wants to cover Los Angeles and take stewardship of Los Angeles, he needs 9 stations placed all over Los Angeles. Let's say in a nice carré, where you have these 9 stations in a equal distance, and it would only cost him $50,000 or $45,000.
Yes.
Such initiative, we call it the stewardship. It could be for a village, a city, a valley, a desert, Mojave,
Portugal.
whatever. Whole Portugal.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. And what I'm working on, we talked about a little bit before, Richard, is just how to fund it. Just quickly, 1 minute. So basically, what you mentioned there, the stewardship is you could have a project. So an NFT project. This is a non-fungible token. I think the most famous NFT project is CryptoPunks. This was built on the Ethereum blockchain and released for free, right? So you have to mint it. You have to pay to actually mint each one of these little these characters, these NFTs, non-fungible tokens. But if you look now, the cheapest one of these is $400,000, is 96 Ether. So this is the most famous one. But my plan, is to basically build a UAP NFT that can fund it. So like you mentioned, let's say someone wants to do Los Angeles UAP Foundation, they could make an NFT project like this, which is what I am working on at this point. Make an NFT project, say for Los Angeles UAP, and now people can buy into this project to fund it. And now you could use that money. You could use that money. It's crowdfunding essentially, but now people have that NFT, so they have essentially a piece of stock into this project. So it's kind of like stock crowdfunding for the masses. Is the NFT project. So I'm working that. Hopefully we can get that out in the next couple months. And if that works, I see it as a possible funding mechanism to actually work for one of these projects. So say Portugal UAP, we want to cover all of Portugal, or at least the dark skies area of Portugal. We could have some project like that. Like you mentioned, $50,000, in the crypto world is essentially nothing, one of these would fund it. And there are tons of projects, we can talk about at a later time. So,
okay.
Yeah. Very, very exciting, Richard. I love it. I'm so glad you're doing this, man. Thank you. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you for your initiative to bring up sensors into the orbit. I mean, no one did it yet. Besides military and scientific.
That's the problem, right?
efforts.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, the biggest thing you mentioned is we don't have enough evidence, and the evidence that does exist, we don't know, is supposedly just locked up in government computers somewhere, government servers. So we can't study it. Whereas now, like you mentioned, we have the technology now. We have the technology. We can start making these systems, and the STEM. I didn't consider that for these schools. Like that STEM project is so cool. So many different ways to go with it.
Absolutely. And there's a paradigm shift as well, not only in the UAP world, but also in possession of data. Up to now, it's old school that anything that is created, the data that is created, is stonewalled. Nobody, it's my data, yeah.
Yes.
And we now see there's a shift. It started with, let's say, 20 years ago with the open source software.
Yes.
More or less. But we also see it in the data. The data has to be, in the future, modern, new data of today, of the 21st century, has to be open to anyone. So that anyone can work their brains around what it means, the data, and doing some warehousing. But most of the old schools they are sitting on it as we own it, we created it, and that's why we want to make money from it. Yeah, stonewalling it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this, because I'm not in it for the money. I guess people can always say that, and of course, I'm an investor. I invest in crypto, obviously, so I do try and make money, but I love how there's so many of us like-minded that just really want to know and are just focused on building these systems, open source. Get the information out there, man. So exciting.
It's the only way it can work. I mean, we have 70 years of denial.
It hasn't worked. Yeah. It's 70 years.
It's done. Yeah. The apes. 70 years.
Okay. Any last points you want to give, Richard? We already kind of mentioned your website. Are you anywhere else?
I'd like to encourage people to join us on our Discord channels, to go to the 360.org website and find the Discord channel links and start discussing with us, and maybe start developing their hubs, maybe finding friends and share a station together, share the costs of it together. So let's say, if in a small village, 3 friends share one station. I mean, if it's a small village, it doesn't make sense to have 3 stations there. So sharing makes sense.
Yeah, and why not get out there and do something? So many people spend so much of their time, so much of their lives, like watching other people play sports. Or I always harp on sports, but just watching TV or TV episodes. And then we complain about, oh, no one's learning stem cell. Or STEM is it's underrepresented in our society. Why aren't these young kids learning STEM? And my question is, why aren't you learning STEM? Why don't you get out there? Your kids, they're going to learn whatever you do. You can tell your kids whatever you want. But the more people that are out there doing something.
It's a nice parents-kids thing. They can do it together in a family. Absolutely. It's not that complicated. It's mostly plug and play. And the software is just download and install. So the entry level is quite low, but you can expand to higher levels if you want. But the entry level is quite low. So
excellent.
A father-daughter thing.
I'll make sure to put those links you mentioned. So the Discord link, the Sky360 website's pretty easy to find. But I'll put those links in the description. And again, thanks again, Richard, for being here. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being out there doing this, man.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing your thing. And I really keep me in the loop with your project, please. It's very. I think it's a good complementary thing. We are looking upwards, you're looking downwards.
Yeah, it's excellent.
I think it's 100%. A great combination.
Awesome, man. So thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks again. Thanks to all my Patreons. Love you guys. And write in the comments, so I'll continue to reply to the comments. And then please go to Sky360 website. Please get involved, man. We need people involved. So that's it, guys.
Yes,
thanks for being here. All right.
Bye, Chris.
All right. See you, Richard.
See you.
See you.